Hey scholars, welcome back to another video on our ACT series on how to get a 36. So this is Jennifer, and today I'm going to be teaching you guys 2 tricks on how to get a 36 on the ACT English section. Alright, so the first tip that I use a lot on the ACT English section was that comma should be describing the correct subject. And oftentimes these questions can be really tricky because you only have 45 minutes to answer 75 questions, so you're reading these questions really quickly, so it can be easy to misread a question or a sentence and suddenly choose the one that describes the wrong subject. So you want to be careful for that. The second trick is something called parallelism. And I'll show you guys examples of these types of questions a little later on in this video. But parallelism basically is very easy to identify the correct answer for. It's more of like a grammatical type of strategy. So you want to make sure that you're applying the right, for example, tense whenever you're describing a sentence. So if you're using past tense in one part of your sentence, you want to keep using that, and you don't want to mix up multiple tenses. Alright, so right here I have the 2019-2020 ACT practice test pulled up, and basically you should always read the directions ahead of time so you don't waste time reading those directions when you're actually taking the test. And as it says right here, you have 45 minutes to answer 75 questions. So it does seem a little overwhelming at first, but the questions are, really easy to answer quickly if you practice enough. And here I'm going to show you how to apply the 2 tricks that we talked about earlier. Okay, so we're going to apply trick number 1 right here on question number 2. And this trick was the one about how commas should be describing the proper subject. So we're going to look at number 2, and we're going to read the original part of the answer that they have right here. So this is saying, delighted, each sculpture was left secretly and was later discovered by staff. So when you first read this, you might think that sounds a little weird. You see that the word delighted is describing the sculpture. Again, whenever you're using a comma, usually the part that comes after or before it is being described by the part with the comma. Alright, so it does sound weird, the original part, so we're going to leave F as like an option. We don't want to completely eliminate it yet. We want to see what our other options are and choose the best answer. So this is like a process of elimination. So we're going to go on to answer G. So each sculpture was left secretly and later discovered by delighted staff. I think that sounds a lot better. It doesn't sound as awkward as the original answer that they have here. And they're using the word delighted to describe the staff rather than the sculpture, because it is a little odd to be describing the sculpture as delighted when the staff was the subject that discovered the sculpture, So we're going to leave that as an option. And now we're going to move on to H. Left secretly and later discovered by staff, each sculpture was delighted. So in this answer, the sculpture is still being described as delighted. It's not necessarily wrong. We're not going to rule it out immediately, but I think it sounds, just as awkward as what we have in the original sentence. And we're going to read the last option, J. So, secretly delighted, each sculpture was discovered by staff. And, when you read that, I think it still sounds very odd. Secretly delighted, the sculpture is still being described as delighted, and the staff are the people or the staff is the subject that is actually being delighted, not the sculpture. So our best option would be G. Alright, so now we're going to work on trick number 2 about parallelism. So like I said earlier, parallelism is basically asking you to keep a certain grammatical pattern consistent in one sentence. So we're going to look at question number 50, and we're going to apply parallelism in order to find the correct answer. So question 50 is referring to this sentence that I have in the brackets, and we're going to read this. So this sentence says, the peak stands at the confluence of 3 major storm tracks and its steep slopes force rising winds to accelerate. So we're going to look at the tenses because that's a very common, thing that parallelism tests on. So if we look at the verbs, right? So we can see here the word stands is in present tense. And because of that, that sets the bar for the rest of the sentence. And we want to make sure that the rest of the sentence follows this, present tense. So we're going to keep reading and look out for any other verbs that are, there. So at the confluence of 3 major storm tracks and its steep slopes force. So there we go. We have another verb, force. So we can see that the word force in this application is also in present tense. So just looking at that sentence alone, this sentence has a very good, consistent grammatical pattern. So we're going to leave F as an option right here. Alright, so now we're going to move on to our next few options. So for G, it says, it's steep slopes that force. And when you read that, that isn't necessarily a wrong answer. In fact, it's very similar to answer F. However, the thing about the ACT is that they really don't like filler words, and the word that is a very common filler word. They like it when your answers are very short, concise, and straight to the point. And for that reason, G technically isn't the right answer for this question, so we're going to rule that out. Alright, so for H, the option is if its steep slopes force. And the word that we're looking at here, specifically for H, is the word if. When we go back to this sentence, it's a factual sentence. It's not a sentence that kind of questions something. And so for that reason, H is not the right answer. And for J, it says, it's steep slopes forcing. So like we said, with parallelism, we want to keep a consistent verb tense going on. And because the word stands doesn't have, the ing part like it does here in H, that's going to be incorrect because it's not parallel. So your final correct answer is going to be F. And yeah, so hopefully this helps. If you guys need any more tips on certain areas of ACT, just leave a comment in the comment sections below, or you can contact us through our website at our askscholars.org page. So yeah, thank you guys for watching.